February 28, 2026. Now, according to the source we're breaking down today, this isn't just some random date on the calendar. It's the flashpoint for a devastating new conflict, one that was maybe engineered for reasons you wouldn't expect.
So what we're going to do today is dive into a chillingly detailed analysis of a hypothetical military strike on Iran. We're going to walk through the timeline, peel back the layers of the official story, and try to uncover what this particular source claims were the real motivations driving the world right to the edge of war.
So how does a conflict of this magnitude even start? Well, according to this analysis, it wasn't some slow burn. It was a sudden, overwhelming blitz that kicks off in the final days of February 2026.
And the crazy part is just the sheer speed and coordination of it all. It kicks off with American B-2 stealth bombers hitting these super-fortified underground missile sites. At pretty much the exact same time, Israel launches hundreds of its own strikes. And in the chaos, Iran's supreme leader is reportedly killed, a massive blow right at the top. Of course, Iran hits back immediately with missile attacks of its own, and the world feels the first big consequence almost instantly. Global oil prices don't just go up, they explode.
But, conflicts like this rarely come out of nowhere. This timeline kind of shows the decades-long buildup. It all starts back in 1979 with the Iranian Revolution. From there, Iran spends the next few decades building up its axis of resistance, a really powerful network of proxy forces across the region. But then, a key moment happens in 2025. A regional war just devastates some of Iran's key allies, leaving them strategically isolated and, well, vulnerable. And according to this analysis, that vulnerability is exactly what opens the door for the 2026 strike.
Of course, every war has to have a public justification, right? An official reason you give to the world to explain why you're doing what you're doing. So, what was the official story for this attack? And this is where things get really interesting. The official line given to the public was basically twofold. First, we got to stop Iran from getting a nuclear bomb. And second, we have to dismantle its terror networks in the region. But the source material we're looking at pushes back on this, hard. It points to UN reports that said there was no active weaponized nuclear program, and it claims there was no solid intelligence suggesting some huge imminent attack from Iran or its proxies that would justify a preemptive strike on this scale.
So, if the public reasons don't quite line up with the intelligence, what was the real motive? Well, this source argues that we need to look away from Tehran for a second and instead look towards Washington and Tel Aviv. The real driver, it claims, was a high-stakes game of political distraction.
The analysis paints a picture of an American president who's in deep trouble at home, plagued by domestic scandals and just terrible polling numbers. And the argument here is that launching a war against a well-known adversary is a classic move from the political playbook. It's designed to create a powerful rally-round-the-flag effect. Unite the country against an enemy overseas and make all those problems at home just kind of fade into the background.
And the source argues a very similar dynamic was playing out in Israel. The prime minister there was reportedly facing serious corruption trials that threatened his entire career. So what's the strategy? Frame Iran as an immediate existential threat. It's a move designed to rally a divided nation and make domestic legal issues seem pretty small compared to a common enemy.
And timing, this source says, was everything. This wasn't a case of striking Iran when it was at its strongest. It was the complete opposite. The nation was reportedly at a breaking point, reeling from massive internal protests and a collapsing economy. The strike was timed to exploit this weakness, to kick a crumbling structure in the hopes of toppling it completely. And to make sure there were no peaceful off-ramps, the analysis claims that diplomatic options were deliberately sabotaged, basically slamming the door on any other choice.
But look, these games of distraction and political maneuvering, they have consequences. And the source is crystal clear about the devastating and immediate price of this conflict.
The first and most tragic cost is always human. The initial waves of strikes are estimated to have killed thousands of people. And that's a number that represents an immediate, irreversible loss of life. And then there's the economic shockwave. The attack triggers an instant and massive spike in global oil prices. And that's not just a number on a chart. That translates to real economic pain for people all over the world, affecting everything from how much it costs to fill your car to the price of groceries.
And the fallout goes way beyond lives and money. The Strait of Hormuz, which is this critical artery for the world's oil supply, gets shut down. Iran's proxy network is shattered, but the source warns that this isn't some clean victory. It creates a really dangerous power vacuum, raising the possibility of the exact same kind of regional chaos that swallowed Iraq after 2003, a war fought with no real plan for the peace that's supposed to come after.
So after laying out the attack, the competing stories, and the devastating costs, the source really leaves us with one fundamental question we have to ask ourselves.
The entire analysis really boils down to this one provocative claim, that all this immense destruction wasn't actually about security or about freedom. It was a cynical trade, using military force to secure political power, bombs for votes.
And that brings us to the core question this whole analysis forces us to confront. Was this conflict a necessary, even if tragic, act of national defense? Or was it something far more cynical, a raw exercise of power, where foreign lives are sacrificed for domestic political survival?
Ultimately, the point of this explainer isn't to give you a definitive answer. It's about breaking down an analysis that urges all of us to look beyond the headlines and the official stories. Because according to this source, in the shadows of any conflict, the light always starts with asking one simple, powerful question: why?